I'm at least 4 years older than he was when we did River's Edge. How crazy is that?
It's amazing.
Yeah. So, and I don't
you look a lot younger.
I don't feel like an old man. But Dennis, there, I almost did Dennis. Oh, there's my Dennis. What the, like to do Dennis good, you've got to curse a little. You got to be like, maybe you can bleep this out, but I want you to fuck it. I like to, don't put that in there because I don't like people to hear me curse.
Well, we'll see what we can do.
It's not perfect. But Dennis was perfect. He was perfect.
And off screen, he wasn't as weird as his.
Oh no, not at all. He was sober. He was sober. So
yeah.
He got sober. I think this is the order. I think he did Hoosiers, then Blue Velvet, then River's Edge. I think, but they came out in a different order. I think Blue Velvet came out first, then Hoosiers, then River's Edge. But he, he was having his resurgence because, he earned all of that. He was such a great guy. And if you see pictures, there's pictures because I ended up the owner of the key photo book. It didn't have any of the negatives in it, but it has all of the sheets, which now you could scan at 1200 DPI and, you can make it. So I have all these sheets, and you can see that he and I are smiling a lot while we're shooting, which probably drove poor Tim Hunter crazy.
And before I move on, on River's Edge, and I actually do think it's Keanu's best performance. I think he's great in it.
Oh, terrific! No, terrific.
That's closer, no. But
I like him in John Wick.
Crispin Glover's performance, is it good or is it bad?
Oh, it was good for me. I mean, to me, Mark, it was fantastic to work with him, and it was weird, and I want to put this in perspective. He was the movie star,
right,
at the time.
Yeah.
What the hell did I know? I was a cave girl. What the hell did I know?
Right.
So we would like I think he'd do a scene and we'd be like, and I remember we all knew it was funny when he said, I poked at it with a stick, because it took like, it was 7 syllables and he made it 17, and that's not easy to do. But we all thought that was funny then. The only time I saw the movie with all of us together was 10 years later, maybe in somewhere in the 90s, there was a film festival in Hollywood, and they, showed River's Edge. And when the movie opened, I was doing a play. So stupid. I look back at like the stuff I missed because, my sense of propriety. I was directing a play, so I couldn't go to the premiere of River's Edge. Like, what kind of moron am I? But
you're working actor, director, writer.
I don't know, I'll be honest, it was a children's play. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. But anyway, I try to serve as I'm called to serve. And that's not a joke. I do think that, I took a commitment and I was following it through. But we saw it together in the 90s, all of us, and Keanu by then was a movie star.
Right.
And we had so much fun. I can only say the only other time I hadn't seen Dudes for years, and they showed it at UCLA in a Penelope Spheres retrospective.
Right.
Were you there?
I wasn't there, but I've seen the movie.
Oh, all right. So John and I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it in 20 years. I can't speak for him, but we definitely hadn't seen it together except one time, 25, 30 years ago, probably 30. And we were punching each other. We were crying, because here's the thing about movies, Dark Mark.
Yeah.
To you, it's a movie. To me, it's my photo album.
Yeah.
You understand? It's my life. It's my friends or my enemies.
The freeze frame of where you were at that time.
Yes, and worse, like if you're a guy like me who goes up and down in weight, imagine if you had to go outside every day with, your photo album and go, look at what I look like when I was 26, which is what, like Matlock's on it. People go, I just watched you today on Matlock.
Right.
And I think they're like, what happened to you? But it's like 33 years ago.
I was going to get to Matlock because on your IMDb page it says you were a fan of Andy Griffith from birth,
from
which
birth.
I find hard to believe. But
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure
we
when you were a
were.
kid,
Yeah,
you watched the show.
he was there in the delivery room. Why don't you believe that?
Was
I think he's a good actor. He said when they slapped me and I cried, he said, "Good cry." Sorry about that.
but you
It
when you were a
doesn't
kid,
say
you
I
loved the
liked
Andy
him from
Griffith show,
birth.
as we all did.
Yeah. Did you grow up thinking, gosh, why isn't my dad like him?
Yeah.
You know, why isn't my dad like Andy? My dad was like Herman Munster, you know,
Yeah.
still is. I love him, but he's funny. You know, he's all like, but Andy Griffith was, I don't want to get all weepy on your Dark Mark show here, but I want you to imagine 3 years with Andy Griffith, what that could be for a guy like me who's a fan of actors and a fan of what they did on that show is unprecedented. And it lasted 9 years and it was perfection. Perfection.
Right. But Matlock lasted a long time too, and you
9 years too. Andy Griffith had 2 9-year series.
That's
He
amazing.
could have stayed on the Andy Griffith show for years later, but he didn't, although they did end up canceling all those shows. Remember when CBS in like 71, somebody came in and they canceled they canceled Green Acres or whatever was on Beverly Hillbillies. Right. They were all making money and they got canceled.
Well, you must have for years, that must have been what most people, when they recognize you. When you go on the street, what do people recognize you for?
Mark, I'll tell you, it is divided by age, by race, and by sex. All of these things are, now people are up in arms about everything, but I'll tell you, I can tell when I'm approached. I can guess generally what it is. And
so
now
a black woman approaches you, what is it?
She's seen Matlock with her mother.
Okay.
A 26-year-old woman looks at me and I say, Quince. She goes, oh my God, I watched Quince 200 times.
Wow.
A 40-year-old dude, Lost. A 50-year-old woman of any color, Nash Bridges.
Okay.
Yeah, because all the women like Don Johnson.
Right. Like a 60-year-old guy, probably The Fugitive.
60-year-old guy, absolutely. The Fugitive, absolutely. Or what's weird to me is that, what people love U.S. Marshals. Now, I like both movies of it. Look, I'm not an idiot. I love both movies. But
I thought it was the only one. I thought U.S. Marshals was better.
See, you do. A lot of people think U.S. Marshals is better. I don't know. I'm like,
They're both good.
Yeah, like one had Harrison Ford, though.
No, but Harrison Ford's great, but I thought the story was a little better in U.S. Marshals.
Oh.
And Robert Downey Jr. and Wesley Snipes were
they were great. How could you have guessed that if you would have said one of these guys is going to prison for 8 years and the other one's going to be the biggest movie star in the world? You may have guessed wrong.
Exactly.
When we were making that movie.
And how's Tommy Lee Jones? Is he as cranky as people say he is, or not?
Okay. Here's my thinking on Tommy Lee Jones. What must it be like? I don't have this problem, Dark Mark. You might, and I'm not making a joke. But what's it like to be the smartest person in every room you walk in? And that's Tommy Lee Jones. Like,
That's right. He's an Oxford grad.
Oh, but he's like, his brain he's way ahead. Like, he's way ahead. Remember that? There's a great line in the Holly Hunter movie with William Hurt. Broadcast news, and she keeps pushing for this event to happen in the story, and her boss goes, "It must be so terrific knowing you're right all the time."
Oh,
and
right, I remember that.
She goes, "No, it's awful." And I think of that. I think of Tommy Lee Jones walking into every room and being like, "Oh God, these morons."
I knew that.
Yeah, I knew. He knows that. But you
guys have good chemistry. I mean, did you guys get along good?
Oh gosh, yes, we all did.
Yeah.
I mean, we all did. We all did. That was a really crazy time. The Fugitive. Do you know there's an interesting thing that the first actor died while they were shooting it. Richard Jordan was playing the bad guy. Now Richard Jordan. You'll look
Oh,
him
really?
up
Okay.
and be like, oh, that guy. He was, he was in everything in the 70s.
Right, right. I'm familiar. Yeah,
Do you know who he is? Yeah.
I do. It took me a second, but yeah.
I think the poor guy had a brain aneurysm after they shot most of the first part of the movie and passed
Wow.
away. That's what I think happened. And so, I mean, it was panic because the whole movie was conceptualized to be shot in a chronological order.
Right.
Not exactly chronological, but his haircut
close
was
as you can
chronological, right? Because that was a huge part of the story, is how he looked. So they had to go back. They cast Jeroen Krabbe, and then when we got to the end of the movie, they had to go back and shoot what they had to shoot of the beginning. And sometimes they actually use Richard Jordan's shoulder, I think,
Okay.
instead of Jeroen. They put him in the same suits. I did that once. I replaced an actor, great actor, that I replaced in a movie, and they used as many of the shots of him that they could use. They put me in a shirt just like his.
Right.
So, when you're over the shoulder and the kids, and all you're seeing is a shoulder or an out of focus head, you can get away with it. You would never even know it's another person.
Right.
Weird.
It's too bad. Now, the other thing, besides River's Edge, and I mean, there's so many movies. We don't even have. I could talk to you for 10 hours about your career because you got so many. But
thank you.
you played Jay Leno in The Late Shift.
Oh yeah, that was
And
good.
I just recently watched that.
Oh, that was a good time. Yeah, yeah.
You can still do it.
Oh, of course. It's like falling off a bike.
Now, did you have any reservations playing that? Because I remember hearing an interview with Michael Chiklis. He played Belushi, and he got a lot of backlash. Did that ever cross your mind?
Well, it's hard to, Mark. I don't know. It's the contextually, it was a different thing. Belushi was nobody wanted that movie made. And by the way, try to find it. Your fans could maybe see it online.
You'd be surprised. It's on Amazon and it's on YouTube.
No, it's not on Amazon.
It is.
To watch?
The Late Shift, yes.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Wired. No,
Oh,
The Late
Wired,
Shift is.
No, you can't see that at all.
Yeah, so I'm just going back. The Wired, Chiklis was in trouble, but he wasn't. Who had the last laugh? The guy's had a 40-year career, but at the time, Bernie Brillstein was still a huge person in Hollywood,
Right.
and people feared him. And Aykroyd, nobody wanted that movie made. The Late Shift, the only people who didn't want it made were Warren Littlefield, Helen Kushnick, and David Letterman, I think. And Letterman was such a jerk. I'm sorry. I know people like Letterman. I was so lucky I got to play the nice guy. Letterman
because John Michael Higgins, who played Letterman, who was great too.
Great. He's a great actor.
Who's had a great career too.
Yeah, he's a great actor. And Letterman, humiliated him constantly.
And booked him on the show.
Yeah, he had him on the show, but he didn't really have him on the show. He said he
bumped him.
Yeah, they bumped him for no, you actually watch that show. It's heartbreaking. Letterman's like, Julia Roberts, do you have a meatloaf recipe? Like he's just jerking John Michael Higgins around.
Just screwing with the guy.
Yeah. And you know what I think about that? Shame on him. David Letterman set himself up as such a genius, and here he is, sexually harassing his staff and being the most disgusting, gross person. And he was beloved, but he's mad at John Michael Higgins for making a living as an actor. Shame on him. And now I see does.
Now, did you get to meet Jay Leno? Did you get to go on the show?
I've met Jay. I didn't get to go on the show because NBC blacked out The Late Shift. Warren Littlefield would have none of it. Oddly, Warren Littlefield ultimately wasn't the head of NBC and had his own production company, and he tried to put John and I together in a series. I mean, I remember we
really,
we went and had a meeting and met the network, but they didn't buy it. Anyway, that's Warren Littlefield. Brandon Tartikoff, I got to meet him. God, he was so great. But Jay, now let me tell you about Jay Leno, why he's the classiest man. I played him. True story. I played him, and I never contacted him, of course, because I don't want to bother him.
Mm-hmm.
But I called him. I got home on the last day. I worked very, very early the last day, and I'm not talking about the reshoots, but the last day of principal photography. And the very last day, I got home about 1:00 in the afternoon, and I don't know why I had the gumption to do it. I called, I know the number at Universal because it's the same number forever. And I called Universal and asked for the Tonight Show. They put me the Tonight Show. I asked for Jay Leno. The woman on the line said, who's calling? And I said, Danny Roebuck. And she said, 1 second. And then Jay's assistant came on and said, Jay, will be 1 moment, Daniel. And then he came, hey, Dan, how'd it go? How'd it go? How'd you do? He was so
Really
interested, because he knew Betty Thomas, and he knew it was me, and but he can't talk publicly about it because he was employed because he is a gentleman. He was employed by GE and NBC, and
interesting.
But after the show came out, my parents were visiting, and then we went to the taping of the Tonight Show, and he announced me in the audience, and he said, there's my friend Dan Roebuck or something. He goes, he played me in the late shift. He had to wear a fake chin and a cod piece, and I was like,
That's fun.
yeah. And anytime someone wanted to go, they couldn't have been nicer. And, I actually produced an animated Christmas movie. I was an associate co-producer, rather, of a movie called Christmas is Here Again. And I not only got Kathy Bates to be the villain, I got Jay Leno to be the narrator.
That's great.
And so we got to work together like that. He's always been gracious, always, 100% of the time.
Well, I will tell you, I met Jay Leno once, and when I first got to Hollywood, I was delivering coffee and sandwiches. I was delivering to the Tonight Show, and he actually saw me delivering it. I was across the hall, stopped what he was doing, came over, shook my hand, had a quick conversation.
Oh,
real nice guy.
Yeah, he didn't have to do that. I can tell you,
He really didn't.
David Letterman would not have done that. And I'm glad that now I could say it's okay. I'm free of having any responsibility.
Right.
He's a jerk, and I don't know why people love him so much. You know what? Forget that. I don't want to say that because I'm.
Yeah,
I don't want to put negative.
People in show business, they all have their neuroses.
I don't want to put negativity out in the world either, Dark Mark. You know what? I'm regretting that I said it. What I'd like to say is that I hope that he has this opportunity to try to be a better person now that.
Well, what you said is Jay Leno is a nicer person. That's all you need to say.
Yeah, that's
the positive is Jay Leno.
But here I put it out here into the world. Now
that's okay.
Well, I feel bad.
Now I would imagine people. Honestly, I would say probably people under 30. A lot of them know you from Final Destination.
Oh yeah, that's a good film. Boy, those guys who made that are awfully talented. That was a good time. Did you say Hannah likes that movie?
Hannah loves that movie.
Oh.
I'm just seeing if she has any questions about it, but she loves that movie. She loves them all. I honestly I should have watched it today. I haven't seen any of them, but I hear that your death comes as a real shock.
It will come as a shock to you because I don't die.
Oh, you don't die?
No. I live. You will be shocked. I just saved you the shock of going, he's still there.
No, stop.
No,
you have been in Final Destination 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, I would have been, but there was an interesting dilemma. I think the main actor of Final Destination had some personal issues. He was a nice guy, but had some personal issues, which I think kind of moved him out of Final Destination 2, and that moved the whole storyline away from us,
right?
As far as I can ascertain. Although he's the movie star in is it the Fan or the Fanatic, the John Travolta movie, Devon Sawa? Okay. I haven't seen it, but I always thought he was a great actor, so I'd like to revisit it.
Yeah, he is a good actor. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Since we're gonna put this on a positive note in the next 10 minutes, and then I'll let you go because we're almost at an hour now. But like I say, this is fascinating.
Well, we can do a part 2. We're only.
I'd love to do a part 2. Look at Hannah. Here, I would love to when everybody can be together in one room. I would love to have you come in the studio with us.
Sure.
Yeah, but I have to get this out before I get anything out. Is it true that you originally were supposed to have Daniel Stern's part in Home Alone?
Well, interesting. You know, that was a secret of sorts, but now it's out because they put it in movies we love. So in that show, if people see that movies we love on Netflix, they don't really tell the exact story. And I didn't understand why they didn't just tell the exact story. The exact story is this. They never wanted me to be in Home Alone. They wanted Daniel Stern. Pesci knew him from another movie, and
Right.
Chris Columbus was in on it. So that's who they wanted, and John Hughes, and that's who they wanted. And in the story, you hear Daniel Stern say he balked at the money because they added 2 weeks to the schedule, but didn't want to pay more.
Mm-hmm.
So the studio, you know, in an effort to teach everyone a lesson, made Chris Columbus hire me. Okay. So they hired me. They insinuate that, I don't know why they do, but they insinuate that they didn't hire me, that I went to meet or something. But they hired me with the intent that they were going to fire me 2 days later. Maybe that's what nobody wants to admit, and that's the dirty secret of Hollywood. I was never going to be in Home Alone. It was always going to be Daniel Stern, but they had to get me there and then say that there was no chemistry, and then they could fire me. When Chris Columbus brought me into the office to say there was no chemistry, I said, Chris, I'm so confused. The characters have one scene together in the entire movie, and the rest of the movie, the kid's hitting us in the face with bricks.
Right.
Who cares? Like, I don't really know who cares about the chemistry. But, you know, I got a lot of good inside information because people can read about it in the book. In the strangest way that God puts things in front of you, I took a girl out once, and she had all the inside scoop because she was dating a business affairs guy. So I learned everything that went on. Because up to that point, I thought they just fired me because I was rotten. But that wasn't the case. It was never the case. But here's what I'd like to say about it, Dark Mark. With great respect that I have for Daniel Stern. So let's not misjudge this.
Tremendous actor. He's great.
Tremendous actor. But this is the bottom line. I dodged a bullet because I never had to be the movie star. Daniel Stern did Home Alone, great. Did Home Alone 2, great. $1 million paycheck, great. Did the thing with Billy Crystal 1 and 2, great. That's great. That's all great. But then he was a movie star. And right about the time that he couldn't take any part that wasn't a movie star part, I started taking any part I wanted to take, and was a movie star to begin with, and am still a movie star to this day. But in between, I've done those other 250 things you talked about. Right. So the blessing for me is I wasn't in Home Alone. I never had to be the guy in Home Alone, because they would not have put the guy in Home Alone in Final Destination. They wouldn't have put him in The Late Shift. They wouldn't have put him in any of the 50 great dramatic roles that I've had. They would never have considered Daniel Stern for. Joe Pesci's a different animal because, you know, he had established that great character, and Joe Pesci's is a great actor, but you know, after Home Alone, they were both kind of screwed. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly. So they both got typecast, and you never did.
And I never did. So, I mean, you know, if you're counting numbers, I'm sure Mr. Stern's numbers aren't what my numbers are. And it's, you know, is he richer than me? Yeah, probably, but who cares? I love what I do.
And this is a great perspective of what you have now, but did you have that perspective then?
I got it shortly after I got the real story, when I realized it wasn't about me. So immediately I was humiliated by it. And then 2 years later, I wasn't humiliated by it. But I'll tell you this, I was Home Alone because I took all the money that they had to pay me, and they had to pay me all of it. And they tried not to. That's what was driving the.
Wow.
That's what was
so
trying to.
You got paid for Home Alone, and you didn't.
And I didn't do
work.
It. Yeah, so they had to pay me and Daniel Stern, and they made some stupid rule because Hollywood is like that I wasn't allowed to work at the same time frame that the movie was going. So it was like 8 weeks I didn't work, and the very next day I got the very next job I went in for. Right. So the joke was not on me. I just
So,
wish, I wish
so
it
it
was
wasn't that
handled
you and Pesci butted heads as much as you were always the second choice and they were trying to.
I was never going to be in Home Alone. This is a thing to remember, Dark Mark, and all your listeners, that there is a perception of reality and there is reality. God's destiny for you is not decided by Joe Pesci and Chris Columbus. God's destiny for me is only decided by me and my contract with my creator. So I was never going to be in Home Alone. And
Right.
it was just an illusion that I was going to be in Home Alone. And that's true of so many things in life, that we put so much stock in this idea we have of what could be, what will be, what money will I make, what will that relationship be like, and we create these false realities. But this is what I'm trying to teach actors in my little mini book here. I'm trying to teach them that 4 strangers in a room don't change their life. So
Right.
don't worry about it so much. You know, we have to meet our destiny head on. We have to be partners in the plan.
Even though you must be a great auditioner though.
I'm a pretty good auditioner. Yeah. You know, and it's nice now after so many years, I don't have to audition so much. I get a lot of parts offered to me. But I'll tell you, I still like going in the room and gluing on mustaches and coloring my hair, and wearing fat suits or wearing Spanx. I like confusing them because nobody really knows who I am. If they watch this, they'd be like, oh, he's just a big goony guy, you know, who probably is still mad at.
You are a regular guy.
I am a regular guy.
You're a Pennsylvania. You're a blue collar guy.
Yeah, I'm a blue collar guy. Dwayne Whitaker, my buddy, always said that would be the name of his biography, the blue collar actor. You know, if you don't, we always joke. You know, this is the actors that crack me up. They're like, Mark, when I was doing Henry IV, no, it was Henry V, and I was doing it was Henry IV. Pardon me, it was Henry IV. I did them both in rep, and I was doing Henry IV, and you're like, oh, shut up. Like, all I ever wanted to be was a guy on TV. That's all I ever wanted to be.
Right.
I didn't have any big ideas about my talent. I just wanted I wanted to serve God with the gift that he gave me.
Yeah. Now you've been a mainstay in the horror movies for like the last 10, 15 years. How did you meet Don Coscarelli from Phantasm fame?
Oh yeah, Don.
You've done a bunch of movies with him.
I know. I love that guy. So this is, again, the genius of how things work out. I was an extra in 1985, and I was walking down a street on a TV show called The Master, and we were out like in Calabasas. And I was walking there like, you go walk over there. So I'm walking with the other guy, and I say to the other guy, well, what do you want to be? And the other guy says, I'm going to be a stuntman. And he says, what do you want to be? And I said, I'm going to be an actor. And I'm sure we were both like, right. But that guy ended up giving me a ride home that day because my wife had dropped me off.
Right.
He drove me back to Hollywood. Well, that guy was Bob Ivy. And Bob Ivy is the greatest fan of Phantasm in the world.
Right.
And then he flips the hearse. Is it part 3 where they pipe ramp the hearse?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's Bob Ivy. And then Bob Ivy in 4 is the state trooper in the burnt face. And then in Bubba Hotep, he's Bubba Hotep. Bob Ivy is Bubba.
Right. Wow.
He's the mummy. And he knew what he told me. He was like, you're going to be mad about this, but I'm going to play the mummy. And I was like, God. You know, but Bob was so skinny and I wasn't so skinny.
Right.
Anyway, Bob Ivy was my ticket in. And then Don Coscarelli is, again, one of the nicest human beings in Hollywood. She's so nice and so talented.
So creative.
Yeah. And you know, making his movies is such a, you know, you'll do it's just like Rob Zombie. You'll do anything for him. You want to please him. He came to me about, did you get to see John Dies in the End? Did you ever see that one?
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Yeah. So, you know, he came to me and he said, I've got this part for you and it's a big part. You know, it's not a one-day thing.
Right.
And I was like, great. He said, but you're going to have to wear a mask. And I was like, wear a mask sometimes? He said, No, all the time. And I went, okay. And he felt terrible about it. Like
Right.
I said at one point, I didn't know if they were like Paul Giamatti wasn't signed yet. I said, well, I could play another part and that would be our joke.
Right.
But thank God Paul came to do the part because he's terrific. But so I play that Mr. Lodgeman and I have that, and I remember at one of the events, Don was apologizing to me on stage. I said, Don, look, Roddy McDowall was, he played an ape in 4 movies and a TV series, but you always knew it was him because you heard his voice. And then I realized, wait, I totally made up a voice. So there's no way to know that it's me in that movie. Because Mr. Lodgeman has a weird voice and talks in a weird way.
Yeah, I heard that Phantasm V, you like filmed like 5 years before it came out.
Or more. Honestly,
Really?
may have been 10 years.
Wow.
We filmed it a long time ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Dark Mark. I wanted to be the best sphere death. Like, because they're always like,
Yeah.
And I was like, tell me where you want this blood, Don. I was like writing my name on the Dan was here. Hardest part about that was whatever that weird language was that I had to speak.
Oh yeah. It was like some weird Dutch sort of Amish. I don't know what it was.
It was, he's like from, I think Ukrainian. It was Ukrainian. The problem was I was working and then I had to work all the day before and then I had to drive up to where we shot, which was, in San Bernardino, and then work and then drive back and then drive back again. So it was a lot of driving and I may not have had the time to learn. And we didn't have, that was so long ago, honestly, you couldn't just put it in your phone and listen to it in your car. That's how long ago it was. There was no Bluetooth.
Right. And then how did you meet Rob Zombie? How did he get aware of you? Because you're
Rob, I had 2 meetings with Rob Zombie. The first one, inauspicious, we were at a place called Kitcraft. Do you ever go there in North Hollywood where they used to have models like Jeff Yeager would sculpt a mummy and you would go there and buy it or whatever. And one day we're in there, I'm there with my buddy Johnny Gilbert, who's a huge creature from the Black Lagoon Collector. And Johnny, this guy comes in and Johnny's like, I could see, he's like, Mr. Zombie. What a pleasure it is to.
Oh,
and
okay.
I said, what did you call this guy? He said, this is Rob Zombie. Don't you know Rob Zombie? And well, I listen to show tunes. No, I didn't know Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
If this is the virus, aren't you glad you're over there? I'm just dry. Anyway, so I met him then, and then we were at, I was at a screening of Elvira's Hidden Hills, the movie.
Right.
Excuse me. And he and Sherry were there. And I went over and introduced myself, and he said, oh, Sherry said I should just come say hi to you. And that's where we met. And then I think it was just a little while later was when they were doing, I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay.
The Devil's Rejects.
Right.
And then he put me in that.
And you've been a regular ever since. You were in Halloween and Halloween 2 as different characters.
I have. I'm so sorry.
Let me let you go because I could see that you're.
I've got. Hey, let's do part 2, please. Part 2.
I definitely want to do part 2, but I wanted to, before you go, tell us about your charity, Channel of Peace, and you're making a film, Hail Mary.
Yes, thank you. So we're making. This is so interesting. If there's a doctor watching, he's probably like, "That's it. He's got it." I invite people to go to achannelofpeace.org or follow us on Facebook, A Channel of Peace. That's based on the great prayer of St. Francis, make me a channel of your peace. Our next movie we're going to make is called The Hail Mary, and I hope I get to come back again because it's 2 years today since we released Getting Grace. And I invite people to see Getting Grace, a film I
I saw that today, and I really want to. You wrote, directed, starred in it.
Co-wrote it with Jeff Lewis. Yeah, it's really sweet, and it's gotten so many lovely reviews and
awards.
It's changed people's lives. People tell me that it gave them closure and hope and solace because it's about a teenage girl who's dying. And she goes into a funeral home to find out what's going to happen after she dies. But she ends up teaching the funeral director how to celebrate his life.
Yeah, Yeah, that's what I saw the plot line. I was like, "Oh, this looks really cool."
It's really
interesting premise. Yeah.
Thank you, Dark Mark. It's really sweet. It's on Amazon. It's on Hulu. You could watch it for free on Hulu, Apple, iTunes, whatever. It's everywhere. And it's you won't be disappointed. I can tell you, you won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
And the next movie, The Hail Mary, is about a funny nun with a great sense of humor and a sense of purpose, who finds this guy who needs redemption. So she cons him into creating a football team for her all-boys Catholic school.
Oh, that's
Very
great.
sweet. People can go to channelofpeace.org, or they can go to the hailmaryfilm.com to learn more. But what we're doing with the Channel of Peace is the idea is we're going to make faith-filled family entertainment, which is why I didn't want to hear the F word earlier when I was doing Dennis Hopper. And we're doing it as a not-for-profit. So if we are successful, we make money, we'll put it into the next movie. And the next movie is a documentary called The Lost Art of Forgiving. So I got a lot of good stuff in my future.
That's great.
And I that sounded wrong. There's a lot of good stuff in the future. And I'm lucky that I'll be part of it, I hope.
Well, I'm lucky that and I'm not sure how this happened, but I got you on my show because I'm a big fan of yours, big admirer. There's so much more to talk about, but
let's do a part two.
Over an hour, so I'm starting to get.
You're starting to get dizzy. You're starting to get dry too.
I'm starting to get a little froggy throat too.
Well, what's funny is we're all afraid that we're getting sick, but the truth is we're in our house and the heat's on.
No, we're not getting sick. It's just we've been talking for an hour. You gotta rest your vocals here and there.
I'm a professional voiceover actor now.
I know you are. I know you are.
All right,
so you're a delightful man, and you're putting out inspiration, and this is right when we need it, and I really appreciate that.
All right. God bless you, Dark Mark, and don't be so dark. Let a little of the light in.
Hey, you have a good balance of the dark and the light. You got the horror movies, and you got the faith-based entertainment. You got it all covered.
Thank you. I'm trying my best.
One of the best actors in the world, Daniel Roebuck. Go ahead. You had one more thing to say?
No, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes, and everybody have a wonderfully creepy week. It's that's the way I sign off all the time.
Oh, it is?
And this week it's very appropriate. Thank you, Daniel.
Hold on. If we're going to have a wonderfully creepy week, we should do it with the creature.
There you go. Wow, look at that.
Bum, bum, bum.
Everybody have a wonderfully creepy week. Bye. Thank you, Daniel.
Bye, buddy.